Hey, this is your boy Rolling Cross, aka Cross the Christian Cyclist. Welcome back to my channel. If you haven't subscribed, please do so right now. Just hit the like button and the subscribe button. That way you can keep up with all my videos as I begin to make more videos on all things fitness. Now, today we're going to be talking about hill climbing. Maybe you're looking to become a better hill climber. I'm no pro, but I'm no amateur either. Hill climbing used to be an Achilles heel of mine, one of those things that most cyclists hate to do, hills. You know, I have a motto, one, Philippians 4:13, I believe I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me, but also I believe that you should identify the very thing that you're weak at, work at it, and make it become a passion of yours. And that's what I do with hills. Hey, okay, welcome to the channel. Again, if you didn't subscribe, please do so, or follow me on Strava as Christian Cyclist, Cross the Christian Cyclist. Okay, let's get into it. The event that we're going to be using for this particular hill climbing tips is Horrible Hilly 100 in Blue Mounds, Wisconsin. Awesome event. I recommend if you're in the Midwest, you definitely want to do this. If you're a hill climber, you like climbing hills, this is an epic event. We had an absolute wonderful time. Let's talk about some of the things that you're going to encounter. Well, when you talk about hill climbing, you got to talk about your equipment, right? So what equipment are you using? On this particular event, I'm riding a Cervelo S5 with a Ultegra R8000 11-speed group set with a 5236 on the front, which gives me exactly what I need. It's a semi-compact. It gives me what I need as far as hills and flats, and I'm running 1134 cassette 11-speed on the back. And that definitely covers the range of gears that I need to do climbing. Here we're making this turn. We're about to come into the base of the hill. We're at about 891 feet of elevation. You can see we're kind of going a little bit downhill. There's a little bit of a downhill before it starts to turn and go into an uphill climb. And you know, this is one of those this is one of those hills where the first tip I'm gonna give you is you have to win the mental battle. And what do I mean by win the mental battle? Hill climbing is honestly, by my opinion, it is more psychological than it is physical. You can train your body, you can get your body in shape to handle the physical stress that you're put under, but the psychological battle is where most people lose because they defeat themselves before they even get into it. They hear, oh my God, 33% grade elevation, I can't do it. So they already check out. They already lose it before they even try. So you have to win the mental battle. How do you do that? One technique in doing that is break the hill up into sections. And breaking the hill up into sections gives you an opportunity to then win your battles in smaller portions. What do I mean by breaking up the sections? So if I had, on this particular event, we have 14 hills rated by Garmin through Climb Pro. There was 14 hills that's considered to be truly category hills. And if you look at Strava, you'll see a lot of category 3, category 4 hill, well, actually Blue Mounds is a category 3, and there are a ton of category 4 hills. All right. So breaking it up in sections would mean you take one hill at a time, right? You study your route beforehand, and then you overcome each hill one at a time. And you take it just like that. You know, once you overcome that first hill, maybe you need to take a break, regroup yourself, and knowing your head, okay, I've just done that hill. Now you reset the clock. You do the second one, or you can do it this way. Another technique for breaking up, breaking the hill up into sections, and which I should have did on this first one, I didn't. It is a technique that I've used in the past that would have definitely worked here, is break the hill up into sections, meaning that like in this particular hill, being that it's almost 2 miles, 2.3 miles in length, Blue Mounds Hill climb is 2.3 miles in length. You break that hill. So you do it in sections according to your fitness. Listen, there's no medals. There's, you know, you don't have to try to prove anything to anyone. You're practicing learning how to climb hills. To break the hill up into sections doesn't, one, it keeps you from having to walk up the hill. Okay, so what you do is you go up so many feet, or you put, if you studied it, you go up so many feet, preferably where it evens out, and then you stop, right? And then that's your section. You overcome that section. And then you do another section. You overcome that section. Mentally, you are winning the battle. That's the key, right? The key is mentally, you're winning your battles. You're doing it in sections. Now, this particular hill do offer a section where it kind of flattens out to a 0 grade. And I should have stopped my bike then, because it would have been a lot easier whenever you're in a hill that's steep at 33% grade. You never want to stop your bike on the incline, in the vertical, right? Where your bike is at such a steep, at a steep point of the hill, because one, it's difficult to get back on it. But I'll also give you a tip for, if you have to, how to do that. But at all costs, you would want to try to find an area where it kind of levels out some, and then you stop at that point, regroup, and that's the same. Mentally, you have to know that you just overcame that particular section of the hill, and then you proceed on. So as you can see, this particular hill, we've already climbed some, but now we're starting to, the percentage is going to start to go up, and you start seeing people begin to slow down some. Anytime we get on a flat, we try to take advantage of it, and we're at 1,000 feet. So we've already climbed about 100 some feet. This particular climb is 564 feet all by itself within 2.3 miles. So this is a great training hill. I've even met a lot of people from from Colorado on this ride, who told me that even though they have bigger hills like mountains, but this is probably one of the more difficult rides because of the length and how steep it is. So they talk, they said it was just very difficult, even being from Colorado and some of the riding that they do in Colorado. So I was impressed by that. I'll definitely be going back to train on this particular hill more often. So what's another tip? Nutrition. Nutrition is huge. If you've been cycling any length of time, you will know that if you're dialed into your nutrition, that makes all the difference between you bunking or having the energy that you need. And that goes from hydration to carbs. Now, on a ride like this, when you're doing hill training, it's important to get the right amount of carbohydrates. But here's another thing. So if you really dialed in and you've studied your route, and kind of like in this particular case, you're going to run into a mammoth of a hill. Look at this guy. He's clowning, right? Because he knows I'm recording. We did have a lot of fun. I met a lot of cool people, man. This was an awesome ride. This is my guy, Mark, right here. He's spinning his legs out, right? So now what he's doing is he understands that we're going to be coming up to the base. We're still at the base of this hill, so he's trying to build momentum, and at the same time, he's trying to loosen his legs up so that he can get the momentum he needs to try to get up as much as he can up the hill before the gradient becomes higher and percentage-wise, making it a lot more difficult, because at that point, you're just fighting your way up. And he's going to employ a technique called zigzagging. Right now, you see it, zigzagging. That's one way of climbing, and I'm going to talk about zigzagging or figure eights or shredding, just depending on where you are, what terminology you use. But that's one particular way. Or you can, like me, I'm sort of doing the exact same thing he's doing, only not in shorter. Like if you see his turns are in shorter bends, I'm taking longer, I'm going more vertical, but I'm still zigzagging some. And I'll explain why you would want to do that, and what's the advantages, what's the disadvantages of zigzag. But we was talking about nutrition. So with your nutrition, if you know that, you're going to come into a situation like this, time your nutrition. So that means eat in time before, so you'll get the carbohydrates to release. Your body could begin to break them down, giving your fueling system the glycogen that it needs in order to produce the fuel that it needs, so that you'll have what it needs in order to make a climb like this. So if you're really dialed in, you can time that pretty good. But if you're not, and you're just a novice rider, and you just, hey, I'm riding, but I still want to make sure I'm getting the right amount of nutrition and consumption of carbs that I need, The biggest thing is don't do it in the hill, right? Do it at the base of the hill. Do it before you get to the big hills like this, right? Because your body is already under duress. It's under a great deal of stress, and trying to feed it at the same time that it's trying to stabilize your core, because that's exactly what's happening, right? When you're putting this much stress on your body, your core is trying to stabilize in order to get you to efficiently work up this mountain. And if you're trying to get your body to now release from the tension to try to digest food, it may not go so well for you. Now, if you're a pro, or not even a pro, but you're an experienced rider, then you may be able to pull it off. And the reason you're able to pull that off, and I can do it in some instances, is because you train to do it, right? You train to do it. If you look, you'll see Mark is in his arrow position. Some other guys are going vertical. We had 21% grade. All right, this hill is no joke at this point, right? And remember when I talked about breaking it up in sections? Up ahead, you see right there where it's a group of people, they're kind of standing off to the side. Now, what I should have done is that should have been my section. Because, again, even though I am a hill climber, I like hills, okay? But in our area in the Midwest, we don't have 2-mile long hills like this. And nor do we have hills at 30% gradient. So this is still, as much as I train on my hills, this is the first time I'm encountering a hill this big. So this would have been a great spot right here to kind of say you've done the first section, stop, regroup, collect yourself, and then go on to the next section. But I didn't take the cues from the people who obviously that rides in this area, because you're going to see those guys later on. They're just going to blow right by me as this hill just continues to go up and up and up. We still got another almost 200 feet of climbing. And that's not to mention that it's going to come to a point where it jumps to like 30% grade. All right. So we talked about nutrition, why it's important to have your nutrition dialed in. Sitting versus standing. I'm going to tell you right now, and you ain't got to take my word for it. Listen, there are national champions. Stuart Dangerfield even said it. And he's the national champion, 5-time national champion from mountain biking. I think it was hill. I know he national hill climbing champion 5 times in the 90s. And he said that standing up wastes energy. You waste energy. And I agree with that. I agree with that. He says, if you're always getting out of the saddle to climb, it's a sign that your gearing is either wrong or you need work on your power. Now, here's the thing. Look at this, 39%. All right, we're crawling. But as steep as this is, I done found some momentum. And we're going to talk about rhythm, because rhythm is very important. But we're dealing with standing versus sitting. Why, you're more efficient when you're sitting. And now some would argue and say, now there are sections where you need to stand to give that extra, if you will, to generate that extra power. And it's really not necessarily that there's more power. If anybody tell you, well, I generate more power when I'm standing, yeah, but that's also power added by weight. So your body is more efficient. The power distribution of your legs is pure when you're in the sitting position. That's all generated power from your glutes and your posterior chain. That's everything that's working, that's generating that power. When you're standing, you're also generating power as far as your power meter. Your power meter is registering power, but in reality, that's your G-force gravity, that downward gravity of your weight and the power. And it's not sustainable because not only do you have to fatigue, but you have to also balance your legs. You have to balance your weight. You have to keep yourself propelled in an upright position, which makes you less efficient. Your core is not as stable. So I agree with Stuart Dangerfield when he said standing is less efficient than sitting. But there are times where you get to certain points in a hill where it's so tough that you may just have to stand because you don't have the leg power to power through it or to spin through it. So you need to add weight to power in order to get through it. So if that makes sense, and you have to figure that out. Now, as if it wasn't hard enough on this hill, we hit some loose gravel. So right at the top portion of this hill, this is where I decide, okay, I'm going to take this in sections. Remember I said earlier I should have just stopped and at that level off part? Well, I'm stopping a little bit up ahead. I'm going to go ahead and stop because at this point, it's not my legs, it's my cardio, right? My cardio, I'm breathing profusely. I mean, I'm gassing because I've already, we went from 840, we almost at like 400, probably a little bit of 400 feet of climbing already. I've never climbed this much before. So what I'm doing now is I'm doing the very thing that I was telling you about, right? You win it in sections. You stop in the hill, regroup yourself, collect yourself. And if you need to stop 2-3 times, then do that, okay? Don't be afraid to. And if you need to walk the bike up, but I got to tell you, I'll be honest with you, it's harder to walk up a hill this steep than it is ride, at least for me. So if you need to walk it, you walk it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to regroup myself down there. I'm looking at my heart rate, and all I'm doing is waiting for my heart rate to come down some, right? And then I'm going to start back. Now, if you do this, let's talk about that zigzag method versus vertical. All right, zigzagging, going side to side, left to right, up in an angle, 30-degree angle, zigzagging up. Here, this guy's walking up. There's nothing wrong with that. The guy that's rolling, the guy's walking faster than the guy that's cycling. So there's nothing wrong with that. You want to go, when you start back on a hill, and like here, it was steep, but it was at a point where the hills began to kind of level off just a little bit, giving me enough to get going again. And you can see the difference when you give yourself a break. Now I'm rolling. If I'd have kept going, I would have never been able to pass that guy like that. But all it takes sometimes is just that little bit of break. So when you start, you want to start in a zigzag. You want to go horizontal versus vertical, because when you turn your bike horizontal, you change the angle of gravity. You no longer have that gravity pull backwards. The zigzagging takes the pressure off your legs. It gives you that, depending on the width of the road and the amount of distance that you're going side to side, it changes your bike from going straight up vertical, which again changes, now you're not at 30% no more, right? Because you're turning sideways, so you're going across the road, which almost in essence gives you that short 0% gradient, because you're changing the angle that you're riding. You're no longer riding up, you're riding sideways. So when you see people zigzagging, or if you employ that method of zigzagging, that would be one of the reasons why you want to do it. It gives your legs that momentarily, that break in between climbing that hill. Now, what's the negative to zigzagging? Zigzagging up a hill, one of the negatives to it is that you create more distance. When you go vertical, yes, it's more challenging. At certain points, you may or may not be able to handle the pressure or the stress on your legs of powering through it. Even in the highest gear that you have, you still may not be able to get through it. So you employ a zigzagging method. You may even stand some, whatever it takes to get up this hill. But the zigzagging gives you distance. It creates more distance, because you're not going vertical now, you're going sideways. So you're adding whatever that is. And this road, let's say this road is 15 feet. If I'm going vertical, and you just do the math, we ain't gonna do the math, but every time you turn sideways, you're adding more feet to the climb. So you're gonna go a further distance. Now, is that distance worth the relief of the pressure of your legs? Only you're the cyclist only you know that. Maybe your fitness is good, so distance is not an issue. You're more concerned about having that pressure on your legs than you are about the distance that you have to go. So you would maybe do that more. In my case, I'll go vertical as long as I can go vertical, and then I'll employ a zigzag method when it gets very, very challenging. And even with that, I try to make my zigzags more of an angle so I can cover more ground, unless it's extremely difficult, which later on in this race, this event, I didn't do all of the climbs. If you look at the graph at the bottom, I only really showing you 2 because I just wanted to get through some tips. And you know, a lot of the people you seen that was riding, they stopped at the top of the mound, which is probably a smart thing to do to get your heart rate back down. But my heart recovery rate is pretty good, so I decided to follow my guy right here, James, and Mike is in front of me, and Mark, and we just gonna max out this hill coming down. As you can see, I'm no brakes on. I believe in I believe in getting all mine back. I can get rest on the downhill. Anytime I get to a top of a big hill like this, and I know we got quite a bit of a distance to go down, it's rare that I'll stop at the top because I already know that I'm not going to do a lot of pedaling, and the distance that it takes for us to get to the bottom is more than enough time that I needed to rest for my heart rate to recover. I only need a few minutes, if that, to recover, even with an effort as strong as climbing that particular mountain, Blue Mound Hill. So what's one of the other things is, you know, your gearing, making sure that when you're shifting your gears, it's important, you know, to not shift with a load. Now, I'm not going to tell you, you know, you hear people say, well, don't shift in the hill. No, you do shift in the hill, because as the hill gradually increase in gradient, you change gears. You don't want to be at the base of the hill in your highest gear spinning like a hamster out of control. You have to feel the hill, and as the hill changes in gradient based off your fitness level, now this is based off your fitness level, that's when you shift your gears. But one thing you don't do is you don't shift under load. So what that means is that if you shifting gears, then don't shift gears when you're pounding down on the pedal, right? Wait till you get into a spin, or let's say you build up a little momentum, you shift to the gear you want, then you spin through it so that the chain can jump onto the right ring set, and then you go through the gears. Or another way to shift gears, which is really that zigzag method of climbing really becomes important, is because when you turn your bike horizontal in a zigzag, that's a perfect opportunity to shift the gear you want. Because when you turn horizontal versus vertical, you're taking the load off of the bike, which is the load off the crank, and it gives you an opportunity to find the next gear that you want based off the steepness of the hill. All right, so shifting the gears is critical, but just don't do it under load. Don't be afraid to shift in the hill, because depending on, you got a 2-mile hill, you're gonna have to shift in the hill. All right, don't think that the gear that you started at the base of the hill is going to be the gear that you finish at the top of a 2-mile hill. It's not going to happen. You need to learn how to work your gears, and you need to learn how to work them safely. Rhythm. You know, rhythm is really important. Rhythm, finding your rhythm in a hill is really important as far as your breathing, your flow. I'm one of those people that, you know, I really like to feel the hill, right? Every hill is different. How you take that hill is different. The gradient is, you know, different. The angles and the steepness, the length of the hill is different. Some hills may have a downhill right before it, so you build up momentum, and maybe you stay in your big gears and you fly right up the hill. You know, there's a couple times on this event I did just that, you know, where it was a roller. It would just happen to be 2 big rollers. So I didn't have to shift down. I just stayed in my big gear, moving at whatever speed I was moving at, 20, 30 miles an hour. And I was able to take the next mound without shifting my gears because I had momentum on my side. So rhythm is everything. Your breathing cadence. A lot of times, like in this particular, the Blue Mound, I found myself breathing when I had to stop because I was breathing too fast, right? So I got out of my normal breathing pattern of how I breathe when I climb a hill, deep inhales. You see how, look at how we came around that corner and just came to an immediate stop almost. That's how quick. Now my percentage thing is a little bit timed off, but as soon as you make that turn, it's about a 14%. So you can be rolling good and you'll come to a complete, you're already braking because you're coming up to a turn, but then you're coming into a max gradient of plus 10% also. So that's enough to bring you to a halt. And this entire event was like that. Hill after hill after, I mean, it was hill after hill after hill. So if you're a hill climber, you're going to love this. And if you're not a hill climber, you'll never do it again, I promise you. So we're talking about your breathing. Yeah, so you want to get your breathing. I usually like to really control my pace of breathing. You know, the more fit you are, the more you can control your pace of breathing, where your heart rate doesn't escalate. Because when you get into a fast cadence and you find yourself breathing really fast, your heart rate is going to escalate. Now, you will get the effort that you need, right? So like if you're in a sprint, you know, you may pick up your breathing cadence because you need a heavier output. You need your body to produce more energy. You need your body to produce more strength, more power. So your breathing increase. When your breathing increase, your heart rate goes up, more blood flow, more oxygen flows through your body, delivering the body to the muscles that's requiring it, right? Because you got muscles that's saying, hey, I need more oxygen in order to do my job. So your heart is not getting it to me fast enough. So I need more blood, and blood is carried through the body oxygen is carried through the body through blood. So your breathing picks up, which causes your heart then to pick up, which flows more. However, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable at all. So you can do that for a period, and sometime I'll do that, right? I'll get to a really tough section or a sprint, and I'll go ahead and pick up. And then once that high cadence, that high breathing cadence will get me into the speed, the power that I want to be. And then what I do is I immediately begin to focus on my cadence to bring my cadence back, my breathing cadence back down to a slower breathing cadence. And that way I can slow my heart rate, because that's unsustainable, and maintain still the power I'm at. It's just that I needed that energy and that effort to get to where I was, you know, that plateau or where I wanted to be. Same way it is in hill climbing, right? So you have to practice bringing it back down. Now, early on, you seen me stop. It's because I couldn't get my cadence down. My breathing kept going. It was faster and faster. And like I said before, it's unsustainable. So I had to stop in order to get my heart rate down. Once my heart rate came down, boom, I get back on my bike, I can finish. That's the first. No, I did stop one other time on this. But out of the 10 hills that I had to climb, being my first time climbing this type of elevation, I was proud of myself, because there's only 2 times that I needed to stop. That time I stopped, and another time I had to change the battery in my camera so I could film some more. So breathing rhythm is really, really important. And the other thing is, you know, you hear a lot of people talk about climbing, and the only way you become a better climber is to climb, okay? Seriously, the only way to become a better climber is to climb. You can't think your way through it. You just need to climb. And as far as your technique, and this is the last thing that I'm going to cover as far as technique in climbing, and, you know, you got different people that have different ideologies, methodologies, as opposed to, you know, how they practice to climb hills. There's 2 ways. There's several things that you can do to become a stronger hill climber. One, you can do work in the gym. You know, the biggest muscle in your body is your glutes. So you can employ, and I do in my off season, I do a lot of working out in the gym. I won't go through all the exercises outside of squats and dumbbell, dead drop. I can't think of it, but I can't think of the name of it. But there are tons of different workouts that you can do that will help you build your glutes and stabilize your core to make you a better cyclist. But on the bike, I generally like to do hill repeats, okay? And here's the thing. So there are those who prefer to do hill climbing over a series of cycling, where they'll cycle out a route that has a lot of elevation in it, and that's how they get their elevation, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. I do that as well. And then there's those who like to concentrate just on climbing, that's their interval. Maybe that's their hit, right? And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Basically, what you need to do is you need to find what works for you. And guess what? Two things can be right. I know this. Listen, if you cycled any amount of time in the cycling community, everyone wants to convince you that what they're doing is right. I'm one of those people that believe that something don't have to be wrong in order for another one to be right. It's okay. Two things can be right. You know, if you like hill repeats, do hill repeats. You know, if you like to just build elevation in a route like this one, you know, if I do 20 miles of this, I'm going to get the same amount of elevation on a route like this that I would if I took one hill and just decided, especially in my area, and go up and down that hill and do some hill repeats. It's really what works for you, okay? Just keep that in mind. It's what works for you. Ultimately, you need to either incorporate some hills or you need to do some elevation. One way or another, you have to climb if you want to be a climber, no matter how you do it. So don't get all bent out of shape. And you know, if you're new to cycling, people are always going to want to help you out, and that's a great thing. And you take the advice, and some people, what works for them, you may find that works for you, and some things may not work for you, and it's okay. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means it didn't work for you. So you have to find what works for you. And here's my buddies. I'm catching up with them, and I tell you, on a hill, what I found in this cycling is that you're going to get a lot of back and forth. People that you pass going to pass you up, and vice versa. Eventually, they drop me, though. At some point down the road, they dropped me. I had to stop also to get my bike fixed. And speaking of that, and I'll close with that, making sure you got the right machine. I think I went through my gear set, but overall, I was happy with. I completed 44 out of the 65 miles. Out of the 6,500 feet of elevation that was scheduled to be ridden, I rode 3,400 feet of elevation. My moving time was 2 hours and 50 minutes. My average speed was 15.5. I started out at 17. Actually, by the time I cleared Blue Mounds, I was still at about 17. I was about 16 at that point. But at the time that I dropped down to 40, by the time I got to 44 miles, I was at about a 15.5 average, which was good for me. And then my cadence was a little bit lower than usual, 71. But with this many hills, don't think that's strange, because even if you're spinning, you got downhill, you probably won't pedal nearly as much unless you're just really going for something. I did spin a lot, but I also worked some heavier gears up some of these hills. I found myself getting stronger it is not necessarily that I believe I got stronger as time went on. I think I got looser. Again, that big mammoth of a hill was waiting for me 8 miles in, so my body needed to warm up. Here I'm talking to Mark, and we chatting it up about what we encountered and what's in front of us. I tell you, you have a ball on this, man. The last thing I'm going to address is for you that's training. I'm not one that puts out a lot of power, so my normalized power was 190 on this. But what I ride to is FTP, my intensity factor. Okay, so my overall intensity factor was 0.91. What does that mean? That's intensity factor with your TSS, your training stress, is how much stress you put on your body. And the intensity factor is at what percentage of your FTP. My FTP is 207. All right, I'm not winning any awards with a 207 FTP. However, at 0.91, 91% of my FTP, which was my intensity factor, tells me that if I was able to continue this ride, I would have been just fine, because I was below my FTP. I was working hard at 91%, but that's sustainable for me. That's sustainable on a ride like this for me. If my intensity factor was 1 point something That then is a problem, simply because that means I would have been working 100% of my FTP, which is not sustainable, right? My FTP is my functioning threshold power. And if I was 100% plus of that, then at some point I would have burned out. So if you're paying attention to your intensity factor, that's going to also help you gauge your durability on a ride like this. So I hope this has been helpful. And again, I told you I broke down, so I'm going to go ahead and turn to this clip and show you. Unfortunately, I did not finish. As much as I wanted to finish, I did not finish. So here is the ending of my ride, unfortunately. Okay, so here's where the story ends. First time riding a horrible Hilly, and I had a horrible event. My derailleur, as you can see here, my derailleur literally snapped. I mean, I went to crank up this hill right here. All right, this bad boy. We were pushing it, and as you can see, the bike's that's going up the hill now, and I got midway through, and that boy just snapped. So that's the end of my ride. I'm 40 miles in. I am disappointed I didn't get a chance to finish, but I know I gave it my all, and mechanical failure, you know, what can I say? Not the way I wanted at the end, but nevertheless, this is how it goes. So until next time, we'll do it again next year. I'm going to make sure my machine is right. I think this is the SAG vehicle coming now to come get me. And what a horrible story. What a horrible way to end. Unbelievable. But peace. This is your boy Cross, a.k.a. Rolling Cross, Christian Cyclist, and my ride is over.